Hello, 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 my loves, and welcome to EQ with Jah. So, I decided to continue doing the How to Communicate with Your Partner Truthfully series. So, this is going to be part three, or just a continuance of the conversation of how to speak with your partner. Now, for me myself, a lot of these videos, I'm just letting people know this is not my personal life, but my personal life does influence some of the topics as far as being inspired. But at the end of the day, I do have things from my past that I start to recognize as things that were hindrances in past relationships because I wasn't able to see myself. I didn't know who I was then, and now that I'm older and I get to reflect back, I have that wisdom now to say, that's what I did then. And if I see something similar now, it's not this, it's actually that. It's so important for us to really get to the place of expressing exactly how we feel about everything. I think what becomes confusing after people getting to, you go through the whole Disney phase, you meet someone, it's great, you flirt, it's fun. And then when you start to get to a point of actually having to function today, or function every day together, not just today, you start to remember who you are, and then you start to look at this other person as something that is getting in your way. Now, this is not something negative. This happens in every relationship. When you are one whole individual who meets another whole individual, and you come together to make a new whole type of energy, you're still your two separate halves, but you still are one energy that's a whole now that represents each other. And if one is off, the other's going to feel off. And if you're really in tune with your partner, you're going to start to realize and pay attention to when we start to invalidate ourselves and when they start to invalidate themselves. What does invalidating yourself mean? What that means is that if I'm talking about a topic or a conversation that I'm passionate about, and you might not be that interested in it, versus just saying because you think I need to speak. Sometimes you could be like, hey, is this a really passionate topic that you love, or are you just rambling? If it's someone that you love, especially in a romantic relationship, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm just rambling. I wouldn't take offense to that. I know someone else might, but for me, it's teaching myself to know, like, what are my triggers and why would that be a trigger? So knowing that I can step back and say, oh, okay, they don't need this as much. Let me give them some time to breathe and they'll catch up. That's a moment of validating each other. To invalidate yourself would, again, to either sit there and listen and not actually be in tune, so when the person's speaking to you, they can feel that you're not in touch with them, or you simply actually just saying, like, look, I'm not paying attention, I'm sorry, this is not something I care about. This is what some people do in relationships when it comes to trying to express how they feel or don't feel. Because to me, I'd rather you be honest about what you actually want from me than you having some expectation that you're going to hurt my feelings, or I'm going to hurt your feelings, or that we're going to start getting confused in a place of not speaking up and thinking that it's not worth an argument. Everything is not an argument. If we feel that confrontational energy, it means it's something that needs to be worked through. Emotional intelligence is saying, why do I feel this uncomfortable about something that is so small or so sensitive to me that it's becoming so much bigger because it's representing something else? You know what I mean? Like, being used to having something your way and then having to do it someone else's way, it could be looked at as, oh, a beautiful union of two people coming together to make one collective decision. Or someone else can see it as, they're taking my freedom away. Now I have to check in with someone. Now I have to share something that I'm not used to sharing or want to share. This is okay to be honest about, but be honest about it, because then it gives you both the opportunity to figure out what you want versus being stuck in the middle of somewhere that is somebody else's middle. What you don't want to be is, this is the middle, you're over here, and then I keep trying to meet you over here to come back here. So when you're here, you're going to think you did the work to get here, when in reality, I actually came from all the way over here just to get to you. So this is why it's important to tell people exactly what you want when you meet them, how you want your life to be and how it looks. And if they're willing to be lined up with it, Sorry, my mouth is so dry. If they're willing to be lined up with you, they will see where to meet you back in that middle. Even if it takes them a minute, if you know you are in the middle of where you're supposed to be, stay there. If this person loves you, they will meet you there. But continually going over to someone else's side where they're only at 25% and you're at 75%, there's always going to be a disbalance of feeling not validated, and the other person's going to feel like they're doing more work than the other emotionally, and the one who's going through it emotionally is going to feel like you're asking too much of them. When simply the answer is you have to validate each other in the relationship at all times, which means if I'm not communicating my feelings and you misinterpret what my feelings are, that is for me to validate so that I can say, hey, this actually isn't about you. I'm sorry if my emotions or my emotional state has made you seem like there was something about you, but there's not. We're still humans. We're still going to be adults with our own emotions and wanting to be friends with our spouses and wanting to have a rapport, but we're not always going to come off the right way, and that's okay. But I'd rather you not come off the right way and genuinely love me than you be confused about my actions because you're in a place of not seeing me. You know what I mean? This is so important to really take into consideration when, if I'm speaking and there's something you want to say, versus being like, well, he always is going to overtalk. Okay, well, that's your moment to stand up to the universe and be like, well, he doesn't hate you and he's not mean to you. So say what you want to say and be like, I don't agree with you. And even if you keep talking, guess what? This is still what I feel. That will teach that person, oh, maybe I should pull back sometimes. And then that person gets to step a little closer because, like, oh, wow, standing up for myself or speaking up for myself is not as hard as it seems. Until you actually do it, you're going to create all these scenarios and emotions around something that never ever happened. And then this person who's on the outside looking in is getting all the weight and burden of all the stresses that have been created around this emotion versus just working through the emotion from the onset and asking yourself the truth about what it means. Because when you do that, you give yourself the opportunity in your partnership to be honest about something. If you don't like it, you know they love you and they're not going to get upset about it, and they'll work it out with you. You know what I mean? Like if you're like, hey, I know this is something you love to do. This is not something I'm used to. I don't want to say I don't love it because I don't, it's not, if I'm not used to it, I can't just really credit it. But I can say it's something that makes me uncomfortable right now. Then a loving partnership will say, okay, well, what can we do? Because this is something I've been doing for a long time. And now that I'm with you, it's going to be really hard to just change because you're not comfortable with it. That's where the compromise comes. Well, hey, let me know when such and such has happened, and I'll give you a space and time to do this, or let me know so that if you want me to not have it around, whatever the case may be. I'm not thinking of anything in particular, but I know the emotion around that moment of like meeting someone and you have all these expectations of what they're supposed to do, and then you realize they're another human being with their own mind and decisions and consciousness, and it's like, oh, they're not going to do what I want them to do because I had this fairy tale in my head. The fairy tale is beautiful. Please reach for it, attain it. But once you have it, maintain it and realize that that comes with communicating. You're not going to have any machine run on its own without anything ever communicating with it. May it be the engine, the robot dash system that keep track, a mechanic. Someone at some point knows what's going on with the runnings of that car because you're checking in with it. Again, if you don't check the gas, check the oil, check all this fluids that are in your car and your car just break down, are you surprised? You can't be surprised by something you never communicated for the car. And sometimes your body is going to have emotions the same way that it needs to communicate for the mind, and the mind needs to communicate for the body. This is why we have a voice to use, to speak, so that we can hear ourselves and feel ourselves and respect what we're genuinely asking for. Because at the end of the day, I don't want anyone to ever feel that me, myself, or anybody that I associate with is trying to stop your shine. All I want to do is see other people shine. May it be in a relationship with me, may it be in a friendship with me, may it be in a work partnership with me. I want to see you succeed. And if your success means that you're going to do better on your own, or you're going to do better in a group setting, express that to people, because then you start learning, oh, when they need to focus and when they need to get things done, they need time alone, and we need to give them that space to do so. But if they're the type of person like, no, I like people around me when I'm working on a project, it energizes me, then be that person that if you don't like being out there, go out there once in a while and say hi because that's going to make them happy. If you're the person who doesn't need that check in once in a while, but your partner wants to check in, let them have that moment at least saying like, hi, I know, let me just get my one a day. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with expressing the way we want to be comfortable in our emotions and in our feelings because we feel them, we experience them. But if we're not honest about them, then we don't know how other people are going to experience them and how they're going to reply to them. So if you feel invalidated, honestly, it's because we're not speaking up. We have to validate our own emotions so that others know how to treat us. Because again, if you sit back and you just take something for some reason, something in the brain's mind, I don't know what it is about the brain. It just thinks, oh, I can take over, I can control you. And me for myself, me and my brain are aligned with my soul, and we're like, I don't have the energy to control anyone. So I communicate everything in my relationships to my friends, to my parents, to my partner. Anybody that is in my life knows that I speak all the truth that I can because I want to know that I'm validating what you said, but I'm also going to validate what I need. And if we understand how to be empathetic to each other truly, we will find a way to meet back in the middle. And this is where the partnership gets to again grow and become more balanced, and they become rooted in each other. And you can trust this relationship. You can trust this partnership. You can trust that it's going to keep functioning even when we're not functioning. Okay? Sometimes emotionally we break down, but we got to trust that the relationship itself will keep functioning around us, and the people within the relationship can keep functioning. And if they're not able to, articulate it so that we can step up and hold each other there and accountable for when we need to, because I might fall apart one day and need you to step up for me the same way. So this is the same in every relationship. We have to know how people are going to have their ways of communicating, and it might not be our particular way, but we have to actually still vocalize at least the initiation of how we do want to communicate or don't want to communicate. Whatever it is for you, it still begins with telling the truth to yourself. And then when you tell the truth to yourself, you can tell the truth to everybody else. The one thing that is one of my pet peeves, and to each their own, I don't want anyone to try to assume my emotions, which is being nice to someone. If you say, I just want to be nice because I don't want to hurt. Don't assume that you're going to hurt someone, because that means you have some either backed up malice or trauma attached to it yourself, or you actually just are afraid to speak your truth. And that's not going to serve the purpose that you want, especially if you want people to actually feel your charge so that they can change. Change happens when you step charge of your life. Change happens when you are in charge of your life. And that's where the closest place of letting the soul and the ego meet so that they can say, I agree. This is what makes me happy, and this is what makes me balance. So physically and mentally, you have to know how to always counteract and counterbalance your partners, because you have to know when they need the same thing. And this is where the true harmony comes in, and the true synergy of the soul and the body and the mind, knowing that like, this is my person. This is where we're meant to be, because we can feel what the other one wants and desires, and we can respect what they actually require for their growth. And it's not always going to be easy, and it's not going to be the answers that we always want to hear, but we still have to be honest about how it makes us feel and what we want to come of it as well, because that's again where you're going to recalibrate the scale to find a new balance. It might feel unbalanced, but if you recalibrate it, oh, it's still going to take you both a minute to feel it out. And then when you finally get there, you meet in the middle, and everything is back to where you want it to be as far as the partnership you create. Okay? So again, don't invalidate yourself. Speak up, say what you got to say, because that's how you build a new way for your relationship to grow, and you can feel better about yourself and the partnership without destroying anything along the way. All right, guys, I love you as always. Check me out here on all my platforms at vicinity.org, Blankcanvas.club, and YouTube. So, anywho, I love you as always. Take care of yourselves. Besos. Mm-hmm.